the Sustainability Management Master's Program, you're answering one simple question. Do you care about your future generation? If you care about your kids, their grandkids, then you care about sustainability. And a sustainability manager is someone who has the tools to make people understand how they can contribute towards developing a sustainable world. We have both part-time and full-time students. Our curriculum is 30 hours. Instead of thesis, we have a research project course and a seminar course which provides them with the kind of research background they will need to be successful in their job. But at the same time, sustainability is not always everything about environment. It also relates to the business. They will take a sustainable business strategies course. They will take a project management course. Most of these courses are going to be taught by industry people, the people who are doing sustainability on a daily basis as a part of their job. Any organization that has a large number of employees and has a physical infrastructure, they will have to have a sustainability office. If you have the passion to develop and maintain a sustainable world, come to us and we will help you shape your passion into a career which will create an impact.
Stevens Institute of Technology is proud to present the Hugo New Corporation Sustainability Seminar Series, co-sponsored by Geocentric Consultants, H2M Architect Engineers, Brown and Caldwell, and BEM Systems.
Where we are right now, starting with a brief overview of Gotham 360 and a little more into our relationship with Stevens, what AASHE is, what STARS is, some of the details, our first silver report, the gold report, and then what comes next. So Gotham 360, consultancy in New York City. Most of us are actually still in New York City, though all continuing to work remotely right now. We are a certified women-owned business, which is a pretty rare thing in the energy industry. And our clients are, for the most part, healthcare and higher education institutes, generally just a lot of large building portfolio owners with campus-style energy infrastructure setups, mostly in and around New York City, but also all over the US, mostly focused on the East Coast. Some of the main things that Gotham 360 does are listed here. The procurement of all sorts of fuel types in deregulated energy markets, which just means where you have a choice for who you get your energy supply from that is not the utility. And New Jersey and New York are deregulated energy markets. Then a lot of energy efficiency project development and incentive management, all sorts of sustainability things, greenhouse gas inventories, climate action planning, and of course, STARS support, as well as some resiliency actions, microgrids, distributed generation, and renewable energy where possible. We have been working with Stevens and through the facilities department led by Bob Mafia and now Frank Locastro as well for a while now. And some of the things that we've done together are continuous year-over-year savings on the energy supply side that I mentioned with the energy procurement. We also applied for and received a grant from the New Jersey DEP, which enabled us to totally cover the cost of installing the EV chargers that are in the Babbio garage. And recently, with the purchase of RECs, renewable energy certificates, to offset 100% of Stevens's total campus energy consumption, that made us eligible to join the EPA Green Power Partnership. And of course, we've been taking the lead on all the teams gathering the data for the STARS submissions. The first one was submitted in December 2015 that earned a silver rating. And this most recent one that was submitted just this March, which earned the gold rating. and hopefully platinum, date as yet unknown. So AASHE, this is where all the acronyms start rolling in. AASHE is the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, all sorts of great resources and tools. Stevens is an AASHE member, so anybody with a Stevens email address can create an account and have further access to everything that they have to offer, which includes being able to see all of the STARS reports for all institutions, not just the Stevens report. So that is definitely a great resource. And for us was a great resource as well when looking to see what other institutions have done to fulfill certain STARS credit categories, and just gather some ideas in that way. And so STARS is the Sustainability Tracking, Assessment, and Rating System, and it's broken out into different categories. It definitely is a more kind of inclusive scope of sustainability, rather than just what you think about a lot, like energy and recycling and, you know, that pretty common environmental sort of stuff. And so a little more clear breakdown of what those categories are. We have the academics, engagement, operations, planning, administration, and then the innovation and leadership. And those categories are broken down further into subcategories, which have individual credits within them, which you'll see all listed out shortly. And so through this framework and the reporting tool, it guides you to collect all of the data to attempt to satisfy these credits. And it's not just, you know, you either do, it's not a yes or no sort of thing of whether or not you satisfy the credit. It's, there are different ways to earn different levels of points for each of these credits. And so then you collect all of this data, you check it over, hopefully many times before you submit, and gather all of the supporting documentation. In this little image here, Stevens did take the green bubble route, which results in an actual rating. And once you submit it, it is reviewed by a team at AASHE. They sort of do a spot check. They're not reading into every single credit. They just pick out a certain number and check those. And there's usually a little bit of back and forth to clarify certain things, or they will maybe call something out where they're not quite certain if it meets the criteria or not. And then hopefully you end up with a favorable rating. And so why, oops, go back. Why do you participate in STARS? One of the primary reasons that we were called in to help Stevens go after a STARS rating was really a directive from President Varden. And one of the reasons being that the data in the STARS tool is then pulled from by the Sierra Magazine Cool Schools list and also the Princeton Review's Guide to Green Schools. Both of those have their own separate rubrics, and similar to how AASHE conducts their review, they're not taking, it's not just a ranking of whatever your STAR score was, and that is exactly how you'll land in the ranking for Sierra Magazine. They look at a certain subsection of credits and have different weights and values attached to them as well. And they also have some supplemental questionnaires as part of their process. So being on those lists and also benchmarking against peer institutions is one of the main reasons to participate in STARS and using this tool. And like I mentioned, it's a more intersectional approach to sustainability, looking at things all across the institution, and into HR and investing, engagement with the communities, and so many other things. And especially if you continue on with submitting reports, subsequent reports, it's a great way to tangibly measure your progress, and give you a bit of an idea of where you might want to go and some directive of where to go next. So these are actually a little bit outdated, and as Dib said, I believe there are now 9 platinum institutions. This information I think is from March or May, but it just gives you a rough idea that there are far more institutions earning the silver and gold ratings, and it's a lot harder to get all the points that bring you to the platinum level. And reporter is just, you kind of filled out the report and didn't really submit it for rating review. And so the cutoff for a silver rating is 45, and for the minimum for gold is 65. So as you can see, both times we sort of just barely made it into those categories. So that certainly does mean that in order to get up to platinum, we do have some work to do. And now that we've been clearing off, or going through the lowest hanging fruit, it'll certainly require some larger changes to make it to the next tranche. And there are not too many other institutions in the state of New Jersey that have active STARS reports. Some of them may have participated in STARS at some time or another, but their rating has expired. A rating is only good for 3 years. And so if you want to keep up, that's why you then submit new reports. And AASHE occasionally, or pretty regularly, makes updates to the template to, as things change and as they receive feedback from various institutions. So this is just kind of where Stevens stands in comparison to New Jersey and some other more engineering and technical schools. So the silver rating from 2015, that was sort of our, of course, our first step into this. We gathered a group of people to collect all the data across these different departments, and that became the Stevens Sustainability where we were. And without making too many new changes, I mean, of course, we established that committee, and that did help us to earn some points in the tool. But besides that, it was mostly just collecting data, see where we are now, and there wasn't really much of a cohesive story of sustainability at Stevens, but there was a lot going on the operations side and the faculty research side, and of course student groups and student activity as well. And so the fact that the first go around we were able to get silver was pretty impressive. And the sustainability committee stayed in effect and was mostly just an idea sharing group. And then more recently, maybe a year and a half ago, it was repositioned to be more of a focused steering committee as we geared up for preparing our next submission. And so it was more data collection focused, and not quite as open to general input. And then that brings us to the results. This is going to look like a lot of information. Like I said, all of this is available on the website, if you go and you can see Stevens's results and all of the points that they earned in these categories and the specifics of the responses as well. So this is just a quick look at the academics section, which is broken down into curriculum and research. And as with our previous submission, we did really well in this category. And especially now when we submitted the silver report, this master's program, like DIBS was not yet at Stevens and this program did not exist. So right off the bat, that was a huge help. And of course, there were a lot more sustainability related courses that kind of came along with that. And on top of that as well, that really helped increase some points in these areas. And again, a lot of research going on related to sustainability. Then on the engagement, that's campus engagement and public engagement. So a lot of res life, student life sort of things. And we did pretty well here, and certainly work still to be done. And there is no, since continuing education is now just rolled up into graduate certificates, that EN 12 was not relevant to Stevens this go around. So that's not included in the total. And all the points that you see here are all the raw points that are then converted into a percentage for the total. Then operations, which is a pretty hefty category. A lot of things related to building, energy use, and dining. Next, I'll go into a little bit more detail on some of the specific actions that helped us increase points compared to our silver report. So first, just give you a second to take a look at just what all of the different credits are in these groups. Operations then also includes things on the purchasing side, transportation, and as you can see, OP16 did really well, being such an urban location with all sorts of great public transportation access, and most people at the time living on campus. That was a really good point earner. And then waste and water as well. Then planning and administration, as you can see here, a lot of coordinating and just whether or not sustainability is formally mentioned across different areas of the university of things that are a focus for them. And then, you know, not maybe what you would think of right off the bat when you hear sustainability, but looking at, you know, financial aid and diversity targets and support on campus, and things of that nature. Then once your raw score is converted into a percentage score, you have these other points that are added on top as just percentage points. And of course, being the, you know, innovation school, we've had to get something in all 4 possible innovation categories. And so what I've listed here are the research projects that we included in our gold report that gave us full points in the innovation section. No surprise, DIBS is heavily involved in most of this research and was hugely helpful in making the connections with these students to get the information and gather the data for this report. And the image is of the dorm offshore farming system prototype testing. And newer to this version of STARS, there are also exemplary points that you can earn. And we could have gotten one more, or there's, I suppose, a missed opportunity, but we really, after scraping and scrambling, couldn't make anything work this go around. But we did get 3 out of 4, which was pretty great. And those were the plastic bag ban of Hoboken, which then of course applies to the campus. And I was really the only member of Gotham 360 who was thoroughly involved in the STARS reporting process. So to get some points for external review, I had one of my team members take a look at the report before we submitted it. And we also were able to score an exemplary point by having Stevens, it's because Stevens had earned Bronze Award for Diversity Recognition from the American Society of Engineering Education. So some of the things that I've touched on, a few of these already, the things that really helped us make the leap from silver to gold, a lot on the academic side. Like I said, the Sustainability Management Master's Program, the existence of this very seminar, and all of the courses. Oops. We also worked with the Sustainability Coalition to create a sustainability literacy assessment. I believe I saw that Alex and Stanley are here, so hello to you both and thank you. So that was essentially a survey that maybe many of you received and hopefully responded to. There will be an opportunity in a future submission to get 2 more points. The total credit is worth 4 points and we earn 2. And if we do a reassessment using the same survey, then we can complete that to get the full 4 points. The Campus as a Living Laboratory is also a credit that we earned a lot of points in and did make an increase from our silver to our gold report. Just one example of that was in the transportation category. There was a student who helped complete the Bike Friendly University certification application. And right now, Stevens is at the honorable mention level of that. And if that is able to be increased to bronze or silver, then that would be able to be used as an exemplary point. Here's another image as an example of one of the Campus as a Living Laboratory areas we were able to fulfill for water. And this is the roof of the north building where these are little research plots testing different rainwater management media filtration. More on the operations side, just continued energy efficiency and reducing energy consumption compared to the baseline, and partially that was done through the LED lighting upgrades and just general improvements to HVAC systems. And as I mentioned before, the purchase of renewable energy certificates to offset 100% of the electricity consumed on campus. That helped a lot in the renewable energy credit, as well as, of course, the greenhouse gas emissions credit. And now we were able to include the new construction as well. And at the time, the LEED rating for the Gateway building was not yet finalized, but the fact that it was built to LEED standards still did earn us some points. So once that certification is actually received, that'll already be a quick increase there. Stevens converted to an entirely organic landscaping management plan. There is a new traffic demand manager position that helped roll out a green commuting club for faculty and staff. And there's also a gradual conversion of fleet vehicles to hybrid or electric vehicles. And that one pictured on the right is an electric vehicle used by the locksmith shop. And rather than, it's not very cost effective to just scrap all of the fleet vehicles and replace them now. So as they are reaching the end of their life or upgrades are being made, that's when these changes are being made. And it is a requirement that it be hybrid at minimum. Some other areas, the dining, the latest contract with the dining services provider, there was a whole section that required certain sustainability actions to be taken. And so that of course led to an increase in the number of sustainable food and beverage purchases. And that has to be something with an official designation. So seafood must be certified, like the Monterey Bay Aquarium, that it meets their standards. And of course, there's continued engagement and increased partnerships with the Hoboken community, including Washington Street Wednesday and supporting local restaurants in the area, and an increased availability of diversity and inclusion training, and just continued work on that front, and actually setting up positions and programs in that realm in the university as well. So Platinum, the next step is to create another smaller working group to begin to strategize internally on the more administrative side of how we can really get after these bigger items. That is going to be a little bit delayed since at the moment, people have a lot of other things on their mind and figuring out how to operate. So that will likely begin next semester. But since the gold rating is good for 3 years, we're not in a huge hurry there, but of course want to just keep pushing forward and not lose momentum. It's great that we do have a lot of support from President Varden. It seems like every time we submit a report, it's just like, oh, great, gold is nice, but what about platinum? So the work is never done, and we'll just keep doing everything we can. And on the Gotham side, since we're constantly working closely with the facilities team on the more energy and building related things, we'll keep working at that as well. And that's an example of us attending one of the Earth Day fairs a couple years ago. Some of the areas that we do want to look at with this working group are definitely on the finance and investment side, which once again, in both our submissions, we were hugely lacking in points in these areas. Stevens's endowment is not super large, and that is the investment of that is outsourced. So figuring out a way to be more specific in the requests for including sustainable investments as part of that, and or creating committee on investor responsibility to sort of oversee or just be involved in some of those decisions. Another area of opportunity, which applies to 2 different credit categories for students and for faculty and staff, would be a peer educator role. And it needs to be a formal thing. Unfortunately, we can't just say that one of the environmental or sustainability related clubs who are peer educators, it doesn't fully satisfy the requirements of these credits. So that's certainly something that's not impossible, but does require a little bit more work to get rolling. The building side, LEED certification for new construction is one thing, but then there's the existing building stock, and either getting those LEED certified for operations and maintenance, or at the very least trying to establish some formal guidelines, which would earn some points as well. And then simply just increasing sustainable purchasing, whether it be office paper or in dining, cleaning products, anything and everything. Another thing in the waste end and related to dining is the lack of a composting program, which is something that has been brought up a lot by students and other folks in the sustainability committee. And so it's certainly something that's on our minds. We're trying to figure out a way forward with. Increasing the number of reported community service hours would be helpful, and just having better data on that. And then increasing sustainability focused requirements across all schools and all degrees to increase the learning outcomes and have more people graduate with a required sustainability aspect in that. So just a few things. Some smaller things, what can you do to help with that? Of course, attend seminars like this one, not this session in particular, but also this session, but the rest of them, and take other sustainability focused courses. If you want to see a list of all the ones that are, or at least were in existence back when we submitted this in March, you can look into, there's an Excel sheet in the PowerPoint or in the STARS report tool, because the more people who want to sign up for these classes, encourage the creation of more classes of that nature, which would be really helpful. And then there are the sustainability student groups, which you can check out on the Stevens website, and the standard tips and tricks that I'm sure you've all heard many times before. And it'll certainly look a little different this year, but keep an eye out around January, February for, it used to be called Recycle Mania, but now there's a program called Campus Race to Zero Waste, which is all about increasing the diversion rate, recycling, reducing waste in general, and having more things recycled than go to trash. And I guess I will end it there and open it up to questions.